Yo, what's up? Bob here. Welcome to the Bob Bradley YouTube channel. Today I'm doing another episode of The Hang. It's a more informal space where I talk about records, gear, guitars, anything that I think is cool and I need to tell you guys about. So let's get started. I wanted a few of the Rocktober titles and I went around locally, checked my new record dealers, and nobody had them. I was a little bit late on that. They sold out right away. So I got on the web, went to Plaid Room Records in Ohio, and they sent me down the two that I wanted. Of course, I'm talking about Stone Temple Pilots, STP, yeah, that's right, number 4, and Shangri-La, la-di-da. If you recall, I just picked up the music on vinyl version of number 4. And I didn't have Shangri-La, la-di-da. Now here's the deal. The day that these were being shipped to my house, I started seeing some negative reviews about these records online. That they weren't very dynamic, that they were cut pretty much like a CD, that they were brick-walled, they were super loud. Both of these are pretty rockin' records. There are some quiet parts, but for the most part, it's like blazing distorted guitars a lot of the time. I would say probably 90% of the time, and then 10% kind of vibey, quiet stuff. I did put a decibel meter, yeah, I'm that kind of guy, on these records just to see what kind of dynamic range we were dealing with. Surprisingly enough, most of the time it was about 8 dB from the quietest to the loudest, right? Except for on this one, on the tune Atlanta, I got as much as a 20 dB difference from the lowest, quietest part to the loudest. Now, I will say this. Soundstage on these, and as far as where the instruments are in the mix and all that stuff, fantastic. You can really hear all the definition on all the instruments. The character of the guitar tones and the bass and the drums, really nice. This one, mastered by Bob Ludwig originally. I don't know who cut the lacquer, but I do know that Barry Grant cut the lacquer on this one. I don't know if they were recorded to tape or digitally originally, but I do know that they sound pretty good. And as far as my opinion on it, I would say it's a buy. These are pretty cool looking, obviously. Orange and yellow splatter, black and white. Very neat. They go well with my Walmart editions of the first two records. And so, yeah, I'm pretty cool with it until something else happens. If Acoustic Sounds comes out with it or something, I might revisit them. But for now, these sound pretty cool. Now, I'm just going to touch on this briefly because I know a lot of people say, well, if it's digitally cut, I'll just listen to the CD. There's no point in me going out and getting the vinyl because, you know, it's from a digital source. Here's the issue with that. You see, at some point in your rig, that digital recording gets converted to analog. I would much rather somebody else convert it to analog for me and then play it through my all analog system. That way I'm not doing the converting. I hope that makes sense. That's the briefest explanation I can give you for why I would choose a digital record on vinyl. The conversion to analog is already done for you, so if you put it into your analog system, you're good to go. Otherwise, you have to convert that digital signal to analog at some point because your speakers are analog. So, you know, unless you have beautiful conversion, like a really nice DAC, just get the record. Anyway, moving right along, I was down at a new spot, which I will disclose at some point, and they had quite a bit of records, even though they're not a record store. And, you know, I wanted to kind of ingratiate myself with the owner, so I picked out a few records and went ahead and picked them up. Plus, they were a great deal. Now, I do have these already. I actually have multiple copies, but picked them up anyway. 2 original Metallica records, Ride the Lightning master of puppets. Boom, 2 Cliff Burton masterpieces on the Electra labels. No Megaforce here. But really cool pickups for 30 bucks a piece. Really clean copies. I figured, no harm, no foul. No matter what happens, I can, if I wanted to sell these or something like that, I could definitely get my $30 back for them. I did compare them to some of the Walmart exclusives on the colored vinyl, right? Similar in nature. The Walmart ones are actually cut a little less hot, possibly more dynamic. It's hard to say. I know the Walmart ones are probably pressed at furnace, which is the blackened pressing plant, but I would love to tell you that there's no difference between the original pressing and the newer pressings of these records, but there kind of is. It's subjective. It's more of a personal preference thing, but these are pretty cool. I was glad to get them. Electra labels, really cool shop. I will be back and I will pick up more stuff. They had some really interesting things in there. Even an original Salvador Dali piece that was on the wall for like 1,200 bucks. That was really cool. I'm a big Dali fan, so I thought, wow, I may have to. I mean, he had a lot of cool stuff in there. That's a big time hint to anyone that wants to know what the spot is. Let's finish up the record stuff here. Last but not least, on the record tip, this is a record that I really love this band, and it is what it is. I really like them. I got turned on to them through the David Letterman program. If you've never seen David Letterman, you should check him out. He had a talk show. But Future Islands, this record was called Singles. It's on that 480 label. Yes, that's right. And they played a tune called Seasons, Waiting on You, on Letterman. And I always felt like it was a really strong performance. They have a very unique frontman. He kind of moves around, and, a lot of people don't know what to think about that. I've showed it to some friends, and they're like, it's like a hipster band from the mid-2000s, whatever. But I actually think they're a lot cooler than that. Really synth-based music. Unfortunately, from my perspective, software-based synthesizers, just played through a controller. But it sounds cool, and the performances are fantastic. Sonically, this record is like, I don't know, maybe a 3.5 out of 5 stars. It's pretty good, but it's more about the material, the writing, the performances. This is a great record. Singles from Future Islands on 480. Really cool. Pretty strong little stack this week. Let's talk about one more thing here. I've been putting up some shorts. I know that you've noticed. I put them up every day pretty much. And on Saturdays, I've been putting up some music, me playing guitar. One of the instruments that I've been using a lot recently is this. Yeah, this is a Paul Reed Smith CE24. Has 24 frets, which is different than, say, an old Fender guitar like this one. Now, this is kind of off-brand for a guy like me. Has a really flamey top. Paul Reed Smith guitars are kind of considered lawyerish, doctorish kind of guitars. If you got too much money and you want a really fancy-looking guitar, you get a Paul Reed Smith. That said, fine instruments. Paul Reed Smith is still alive, still running the company. One of the only guys that started an instrument company and is still running it
with an iron fist.
I've had Paul Reed Smith before. They recently changed to a lacquer-based finish instead of a poly-based finish, which really came as a surprise to me, and I started considering them again because I much prefer the sound of lacquer over polyurethane, which is sort of plasticky. And I have to say, this guitar plays magnificently. Sounds great. The new record that me and the Condors in the System have been working on is a Stratocaster-based record, which is all single coil pickups. These are humbuckers, right? But it has this little switch here, this little knob. and you pull it up, and it splits the coils into singles, so you're only getting one of the two, and you can get some quote-unquote single coil-esque sounds out of this guitar. So live, it's easy for me to switch between our older material and the newer stuff that's got the Stratocaster. Of course, music from the Eagle Nebula, which is our second record, is also a single coil guitar-based record as well. So this works out well for me. I've been playing it a lot. Great guitar. I mean, it probably comes as no surprise to anyone watching this that knows anything about guitars. Paul Reed Smith instruments are great. But it's kind of a new thing for me. All my guitars are old, so I just wanted something that was totally original and complete. You know, it hasn't been refretted or had to have a bunch of extensive work done to it because it's 50 years old. Really super dark fretboard, which is how I prefer it. It does have these birds. There's a different bird for all the fret marker positions. My favorite one being the owl on the very last fret. Really cool. Neat guitar. And I thought I would share that with you. But anyhow, all right, guys. Enough about that. Until we meet again. That's right, folks. Bob out.